Welcome on in, guys. Three bold takes, and we are back again with some more predictions. I believe it's week 11 of the college
Yeah.
football season. But before we do that, we want to thank our partner SeatGeek for giving us a discount code to save you guys $20 off your first purchase. That code is three bold takes. Again, three bold takes, all spelled out for $20 off your first purchase. So thanks SeatGeek for sponsoring the channel. We're talking Big 12 action here between Kansas and BYU, who is currently undefeated, leading the Big 12, ranked number 6 in the latest college football playoff rankings. BYU comes in as a 3-point favorite at home. The over-under is 55.5, and they have a 60% chance to win against Kansas. Now, keep in mind, Kansas just came off of a huge, huge win last week. And BYU barely escaped the Holy War against Utah. So I'm gonna throw it over to Quinn first. Very interested to hear what your thoughts on this game. Can BYU keep it up?
Well, I think this is the easiest game in the world to pick. All right. Yeah, Kansas just had a huge upset over Iowa State, and that was good for them. Kansas, pretty much throughout the season, has been the best team in the world at almost winning. And BYU has been the best team in the world at almost losing. So I'm going to get real bold and say BYU barely wins and almost loses to Kansas, as Kansas barely loses and almost wins against BYU. Give me BYU to
Wow.
win by 4 points. That's my call. It's been all season, like across the board, both teams. I mean, BYU looked really good in the front half of the year, but down the stretch, it's been like, oh my goodness, each week they just keep barely getting away with it. And Kansas is the polar opposite. It's like each week they just, I mean, they blew out Houston, but come on, Houston's not good. Each week, it's for the most part been they just barely lose. I'm really also partially just jaded on Kansas. I was pretty high on them, and they've hurt my feelings. So
There's
BYU
the real
wins.
reason.
That
There it
is
is.
the real reason.
Hey, shout out McLovin for this one, but I'll tell you what Quinn is talking about by how close they are to winning. 23-17 to Illinois, lost. 23-20 UNLV, lost. 32-28 West Virginia, lost. 38-27 TCU, lost. Arizona State, 35-31, lost. And Kansas State, 29-27, loss. That is how close. Like, they're probably, I think, overall, like 30 points or less to being undefeated.
Dude,
Like,
they're just
that close.
they're just Scott Frost, Nebraska, in a
Yep.
different
Yep. That's what I was gonna say.
in a different suit.
Well, and you look at that, and then on the other hand, you got BYU, who of course is just barely win. I called Utah last week in a BYU upset because I always say there's one game that I'm like, there's no way Utah wins this game because Utah is just so depleted, they're so hurt, and then their defense shows up. And that game happened, and BYU still got away with it for some unknown reason. But like every good thing, it must fall. Just like Miami this past week, who had just been playing and playing around with an upset and thought that they could get away with it. And Georgia Tech's scrappy self finally got away with it. I think Kansas doesn't. I think Kansas, they're coming off a good win against Iowa State. I think they end up doing it finally against BYU. It's not some master class by Daniels or by Leopold or anything, but I think they can get because over these last few seasons with Daniels at the helm, with Leopold at the helm, they have been a very quality football team. But for some reason this season, everything's kind of fallen apart. You have nothing to lose. You can play this game well, and you can ruin somebody else's season. I think that's what Kansas does. They play it just like a true 2010s Kansas, where they win 1 to 2 games a year. But by golly, they're upsetting somebody. I think it's BYU and the BYU in this one. Give me Kansas for the win.
Hey, that's very bold. I was bold last week and picked Utah to win as well. I was almost right. I actually picked a couple of upsets last week. Correct. I thought I was going to go really, really good on the upset with the BYU train. Um, Listen, I just feel like they have to lose at some point, right? Like when you barely scrape by and you flirt with danger, there's one thing to winning close games or finding a way to win in games. But typically, when you find a way to win, you're not winning by 2 points. Like, you're still winning by 7 to 10, more than likely. You're flirting with disaster. I think you're a really good team if you're BYU. Very impressed. But I'm done. I'm done disrespecting BYU. Give me BYU to win. Like, until they prove me wrong, I can't keep picking an upset. Like, it's one of those things where if I pick against them every single week, eventually I might be right. I'm done. I'm done disrespecting them. Same thing with like Army, and team and even Indiana, right? Like, until that, like whatever. I'm tired of always going against and getting these underdogs and things like that. I guess Indiana's a little bit different.
I was about to say
Um,
I'm holding you to that next week whenever they play Ohio
okay,
State.
well BYU's not playing Ohio State. Okay, they're playing
That's
Kansas.
fair. That's
Uh,
fair.
so yeah, give me BYU to win. I got roasted in the comment section last week for picking Utah, and everybody came back and told me how ignorant I was. So peer pressure is real. Don't fall into peer pressure if you're listening to this video. Even though I am falling into peer pressure and going BYU here. So that's been the video on Kansas and BYU. Let us know down below. Are we wrong? We always like the comments, good, bad, or indifferent. So let us know down below. Remember, SeatGeek, $20 off your first purchase with our code 3BoldTakes. Freddie, Chase, and Quinn, we will see you guys next week.